This is Kenya's the number one opera in the world, according to Thorin. You're watching Thorin channel, that are also known as the number one existence fan in the world.
ESL New York 2018 is the next event after the major. It's a great tournament on the calendar. I've always personally thought it was quite underrated. It's always produced fantastic games. You think of Virtus.pro versus SK Gaming in the semi-final in 2016 and the run of Team Liquid at that tournament. You think after that of 2017, where you had FaZe Clan stomp the whole tournament, but SK Gaming lose out in that amazing series to Team Liquid. Team Liquid beat SK Gaming, beat Astralis, beat Virtus.pro, all these teams in best of three. You had Simple Hard carrying Na'Vi, who wasn't quite good enough at the time. You had Cloud9 making a run to top four, going head-to-head with the FaZe Clan, being unable to do anything, obviously setting up that amazing storyline for the major just a few months later. Then you've got to add in, it always has a fantastic crowd atmosphere. That is a great venue to have a tournament in, the Barclays Center, where the Islanders play and where the Brooklyn Nets play. I think it's one of the coolest locations to visit, New York. Every player seems to love it. It's a place where I think fans will travel to have the week in New York and go and see the tournament. So for me, one of the most underrated stops on the calendar. Then you've got to add in, because there's no Astralis, they're off playing at the Blast Pro Series Istanbul, which might sound initially like a win for Blast Pro Series. Like, hey, we got the best team in the world. Yet, who the fuck wants to see the best team in the world play a bunch of other bomb teams, because the other elite teams are at this tournament, and wreck them? We just saw Astralis beat the best teams in the world with ease. So, actually, that tournament holds very little interest. And in fact, Cloud9, because of their business relationship with Blast, dropping out of ESL New York, did ESL New York a fucking favour, because the team replacing Cloud9 is Team Liquid, who now is much better than Cloud9 and is a much bigger draw. So what's great about this tournament is, after seeing Astralis take away the chances of all the other teams from winning the major, just defeat FaZe Clan, number 4 team in the world, defeat Team Liquid, number 3 in the world, defeat Na'Vi, number 2 in the world, and beat all those teams 2-0 and with relative ease. Now it's kind of cool to see, right, take Astralis out of the equation. What happens if you have Na'Vi and Team Liquid and FaZe and you just have them going head-to-head in a tournament for the title? That's what we're going to find out here. It's a wide-open tournament, and it's a really exciting tournament as a result, because we all know those different teams, depending on the matchup, it's not going to be the one team dominates all necessarily. So then you've got to add in the Grand Slam. The Grand Slam's still going on. If Na'Vi wins this tournament, because they've got ESL One clone, they jump up to 2. That's halfway to the Grand Slam. If FaZe Clan wins the tournament, a lot of people aren't aware of this, because the 10 tournament spot the window keeps pushing on. Okay, yes, they don't have 3 championships anymore. After DreamHack Stockholm, they blew their chance to, maybe it was ESL One clone. They blew their chance to actually complete the Grand Slam. They still have 2 titles. Are people not aware of this? They have the IM Sydney and they have the ESL Beryl Horizonte title. They are half the way there still. So with no Astralis, if they win this championship, they're right back up to 3 again. And then IM Chicago, all the events going forwards, IM Katowice, it was implied by Carmack on Twitter, they can win the Grand Slam at these tournaments and get the $1 million. So that's still available, absolutely. And even if they don't win the Grand Slam, if you win this event, now everyone gets the spoiler bonus if they meet you in the final, which sadly never actually happened for FaZe Clan, because they never made any of the finals of those other tournaments when they had the 3 titles. Then, let's look at the fact that, okay, when Astralis is there, you got to consider, they're probably going to win the event, etc. This removes all excuses. Now, if you're FaZe Clan, if you're Team Liquid, if you're Na'Vi, if you don't win this event, you're just not the best team, and you're not even contending for the best team. This is where you prove that it's only Astralis that can beat you, and you wait for that team to drop off or your team to elevate to their level. Interesting other detail, the format is different this year, because even though the other ESL and IEM events had that standardized format, which I like actually, where you only have one set of best of ones, then it's double elim the whole way. You have to win a bunch of best of 3s to get to the playoffs. The playoffs is 6 teams, and then some of them skip to the semis. It's not the best format in the world, but it's a pretty fucking good one, and it's produced a lot of really great games and really shown how dominant teams like Astralis were when they were able to win events, such as the ESL Pro League. They're not using that here, because they only have 8 teams. So instead, they're doing GSL with 2 4-team GSL groups. Every game is best of 3, so awesome, exactly what a lot of us want. Top 2 teams from each group, so top 4 overall, make the playoffs. The playoffs are best of 3 semi-finals into a best of 5 grand final, as with last year's grand final, where FaZe Clan won 3-0. Now, I actually really like this format. I think it's a really sick format. It's concise, but at the same time, there's a lot of play. And at the same time, you actually have to be, in theory, the best team to win the tournament because of the best of 5 grand final. I love everything about it. I think the groups were even well seeded. Sure, now they look worse because of roster moves in post-major slumps from certain teams, but at the time they made them, at the time they used the rankings, it's all accurate. ESL is actually one of the best companies in the game for my money for actually making the groups and using seeding properly, using their ranking system. So generally, love everything about it. Now coming into the tournament, I'll use my traditional format for breaking them down by talking about the teams in the bracket in which they're in, and then I'll talk about the groups, because at least in this group stage, they're best of 3 games, and we know who's playing the first round, so we can actually break down some of those games. So let's start here. There are 3 favourites for this tournament. I alluded to it earlier. There are 3 S-class teams in this tournament, S-tier, and those are Natus Vincere, Team Liquid, and FaZe Clan. So let's start with the first one, Natus Vincere. Now, obviously, Na'Vi has struggled historically with Team Liquid. Team Liquid's beaten them a number of times, so that's a team that they're looking to overcome. That's a team that they're looking to best. That's a team that they're potentially going to have to play in a final or a semi-final. So that is something that has to be in Na'Vi's mind. Now, they are good enough to beat Team Liquid. I think certainly Team Liquid's expanded map pool makes it even more exciting if they play now. But if they play Team Liquid in a final, which wins? Does Team Liquid's curse of not winning finals win out? Or does Team Liquid being a better team than Na'Vi in terms of that specific stylistic matchup win out? I'd like to see how that goes. I actually think Na'Vi is due potentially for the whole thing to blow up. I think the way that they didn't perform in the major finals is very worrying. I think that having to have Simple and Electronic go ham every game is not a viable win condition going long term. I think their map pool is still very, very good, and I certainly don't think you can now just pick Dust 2 like people think. But I do think that this is a team where we've seen the ceiling hit. I think they were arguably at their best a month and a half ago, just before the player break. I think this is a team that can win the event, but I'm also poised for them to potentially not win the event and actually at some point lose a player, do a roster move, have a blow up. That's what I'm interested to see. Still think they're a very solid team, but they have to play pretty much to their limits to beat their top level. And yes, they can win ugly games because they've got such fabulous players that they can have the 2 best players in the tournament, but that can't last forever, and that can't be a reliable win condition for the long term. It already has been for a few months, and that's amazing. It can't be for the long term. Then we go to Team Liquid. We all know all the pieces are there. They've got players who can do all the things they need to do. They've got players who can frag out. They've now got a very solid map pool. They've got experience under their belt. Now they have to finally shit or get off the pot. It is time to win championships, to stack trophies, and to leave tournaments as the best team in that tournament. It's not good enough to be a team with potential, to have played very well, to have a great game in the group stage, to beat someone in the semi-finals. Now it's time to lift some trophies. Otherwise, you will start to be labelled as legitimate chokers, as a team who cannot get it done and who psychologically beat themselves. This is a team that has the ability to win this tournament, to be the real challenge to Astralis. At the moment, they aren't, and a lot of that lies on them, not just how good Astralis is. Then let's look at FaZe Clan. With the players they have in this team, unless these players individually have some huge slump, they will always be a threat to win tournaments. Like, they were the team that took Astralis closest. And I'm going to say right now, if they'd have beaten Astralis there, I really do think they could have won that major. As ridiculous as it might sound, I think they would have actually gotten to Team Liquid and pressured them and made them break under that kind of scrutiny. If they'd have played Na'Vi in the final, you know what, I'd edge it to Na'Vi. I think the map pool's better for Na'Vi, but I think there's a world in which they frag out. I think there's a world in which Na'Vi doesn't play that well, and they could have won the major. So I think people are writing off FaZe Clan way too soon. Yes, they've looked worse recently. Yes, they've lost to lesser opponents. It wasn't just Astralis who got to them. But they still have fabulous talent in that team. There's still a small tweak here or there from being very dangerous, whether that's on the fly or a permanent tweak. I know this team could blow up. I know Carrigan could get kicked. I know other players may leave or be added. It's very exciting, it's very confusing, it's very frustrating, because I agree that this lineup isn't ever going to be number 1 team in the world. Doesn't seem reasonable, even though technically they were ranked at the very end of last year. If you look at the way tournament rankings work, So yes, it is to some degree a failed experiment, but what a glorious experiment. And in a tournament like this with no Astralis, I definitely want to see this FaZe Clan team play. And I think they could be the best team in the tournament, as we have yet to see, because Team Liquid has that key character flaw. And Na'Vi is living on borrowed time, expecting superstar players to carry every single fucking tournament. Sooner or later, one of them's going to have a bad tournament, mate. Then we've got my category of dark horses. I've only got one team in here, and two. I've got NRG and Mouse Sports. Now, NRG, they're a solid team. That's the thing about them. Their potential, that still has yet to even develop as much as Team Liquid. They've got some quality players. They've got a nice unit around them. They play a pretty good team play, Counter-Strike. Daps and I'm a Pet seem to do their job in terms of the homework and the prep work. They have a half-decent map pool as well. They have a few maps they're very strong on. Overpass, they're pretty decent on Inferno. The problem is, this is a team that has floundered under big pressure. This is a team that has floundered against the big name squads, and they had the odd upset, and maybe in a group stage setting, they can give us an upset, win a map off FaZe, maybe even beat a FaZe. But what are they going to do in the playoffs? Because right now, I could bet my house that they're going to fail if they make the playoffs, and they're not going deep in this tournament, and they're not going to the final, and I don't think they got a chance to win the title. But they are a dark horse, and I want to see more development from them. I want to see some evolution, see a bit of grit if they get to the playoffs, get to the playoffs in the first place, play well, beat the teams that are below you soundly, showcase a strong map pool, showcase a little bit of evolution, and you don't have to win right now. It's not the same demands as for Team Liquid, but keep progressing along the path, keep climbing the rungs of the ladder, and then let's talk in a couple of months about potentially being one of the best teams, moving up to an A-class, potentially one day an S-class team. Then you've got to look at Mouse Sports, just because of the tournament field, and just because of how rocky teams like FaZe, teams like actually Na'Vi can be at times in terms of playing bad Counter-Strike, not losing games. You have to consider that Mousesports has the players to potentially win these matches and to have one-offs. Now, as a team, I think they're dreadful. In terms of style, I don't think it makes sense. I think they've destroyed their map pool. I think they've actually hampered some of their stars. I think Rops has really lost some of his edge. Oscar knows he might be kicked anytime soon, so he's lost his motivation. They haven't got a whole lot to rely upon, but they still have enough raw quality in terms of players. They can turn up and they have a mad puncher's chance to win these games. And funnily enough, for a team with no map pool, actually quite widely across the map. But they have a wide map pool, they just have no depth whatsoever there, quite frankly. So I don't think they're going to do anything, but you look at this tournament, they can make playoffs, they can make top four. Beyond that, probably nothing, but no one's going to be overlooking them, put it that way. Now we've got the also-rans. Those are Fnatic and G2. Now Fnatic could have been a dark horse, but they've lost Flusher, player I didn't think was playing well, and they brought in Scream. Now presumably they're just going to turn Scream loose, they're going to let him shoot people in the head, they're going to let him do what he wants while they team play elsewhere. The main flaws are this. One, it destroys a map pool which already didn't exist. They basically only had like one or two maps they were good on, the rest they were fairly ropey on. Then you've got to add in, they've got firepower, that's an upgrade, but they've lost any semblance of like team chemistry. I already didn't think this team had a lot of team play, but now they've lost another core member who's played with them for a long time. So I don't expect much from them, but certainly on the odd map, certainly if Scream goes ham, if JW goes ham, if Crims plays a very solid game, they've got chances to upset here. It's just don't expect anything deep. Now G2, firepower is what they have lacked. They've never had Kenny S and Shox go super ham at the same time, even though they're taking turns. Body, quite frankly, has underwhelmed me. I expected more fragging. Smiths in existence are as bad as you'd expect, but hopefully are adding some of the tactical element. The real killer for G2 is the lack of the map pool. If they were already up to 5 maps, and they could really intelligently veto here and there, and they had a couple with depth, I'd say this is going to be a really exciting team, and I'd actually, for my own biased reasons, bump them up to dark horse, but I can't in this state. Like, at the moment, they haven't shown they could win a best of 3 against any of my top 5 or 6 teams at the moment. I know they beat Mousesports at GSL Cologne. That was a while back, though, and that was before people knew their map pool and how they were going to play. So they've got to really show me something at this event, especially with the pressure of that Vitality team coming along with a bunch of more firepower. Yeah, no proper in-game leading presence, and that is going to naturally mean either you want to poach one of their players, which means you have to be good enough that they'd want to go to you, or you might get one of your players poached. So that's going to make the whole thing pretty sexy, and they've now got their kind of feet to the fire, as it were. In the no chance area, well, if you've done basic maths, you can tell there's one team left. Their team name is Gambit. Hobbit is leaving. The team is disbanding. Some of them may go to a super team. Hopefully one day, I personally hope, an Adren, something like that, might end up on a team like Na'Vi, perhaps Hobbit, somewhere on Na'Vi. I'd put Hobbit personally replacing Flamey. I wouldn't just put him instead of Edward. But I'd like to see that kind of a team work. I don't think Gambit as a team was good anyway. I thought their map pool was very wide and so shallow it was unbelievable. So it didn't matter that it was wide. It was like one of those people who's like, I have a wide champion pool in League of Legends. Are you really good on any of the champions? Nah, I can just pick them. That's not the same as having a wide champion pool, mate. So, yes, Gambit was a very flawed team. They looked like a team at the end of their rope. I didn't think they had very good morale in the team. They had no discernible strengths. Even their star players had fallen away. But they had an okay level of firepower, so they could still play teams close. They could still get the odd map win, but even that really fell off. I don't expect them to do absolutely anything at this tournament. I think they're going to be absolute bombs in this group, and I'm saying they've got no chance. Now let's look at a few matchups. So in Group A, Na'Vi plays against Gambit. Now, at least that could be fun in as much as these two teams know each other very intimately. Map pool's actually not, as I said, one for Gambit where they just don't play half the maps. They play them. So I think Na'Vi goes to their strengths. And you know what? Gambit might even be able to take a map here. They shouldn't, but it's Na'Vi. Na'Vi often gives up a map. Na'Vi should win this all day long. They've got the better players. They're the better team. They've got the better rhythm. Even in terms of style, they play that grimy game better than Gambit does, mainly because Gambit learned it from Zeus. Then you've got Fnatic Mousesports. Now, this game is fucking wide open. Mouse is bad enough they could lose this series. Fnatic shouldn't win it because they're taking Scream and they don't have Flusher. You know what? I'm tempted to say this is 3 maps and Fnatic edges it somehow. And maybe Draken has a really sick performance on one map and my boy Snacks continues to underwhelm and Mouse loses the series. I could see it happening. On paper, I guess you've got to favour Mouse and the higher ranked team. But their map pool problems actually means I could see the honeymoon aspect and not knowing what to expect from Fnatic. Meaning it just becomes a DM and Fnatic could win it actually. Then you've got to look, Group B, we've got FaZe against G2. Now, as you saw when those teams played at the end of the Legends stage, G2 almost won a map against them. I think the map pool is the issue for FaZe here. And while FaZe, talent-wise, could 2-0 this all day, I think G2 will get a map, whether that's Inferno, whether that's TIS2. I think they will get a map, but I think FaZe will win the series 2-1. FaZe is a much better squad overall. But God, would it be hype if G2 can at least make 1.5 maps close. Then let's look at Team Liquid against NRG. Now, this is a fun matchup because Team Liquid on paper, much better than NRG. But NRG has beaten Team Liquid. NRG actually has had tournaments where they've outperformed Team Liquid. NRG is a pretty solid team, and I don't think they're scared of Team Liquid. So I think Team Liquid has something real threat to face here. But I think what will make this series interesting is we know NRG players Overpass, Train. They actually play some of the maps that Team Liquid generally isn't as big a fan of. So I think actually the map veto is what's very interesting here. I want to see if Team Liquid dares to pick a Dust 2. I want to see if Team Liquid's just going to revert to their strengths of Inferno and Mirage. I think Overpass definitely, if it isn't the ban, that opens up Train for the NRG guys. I think NRG's getting at least a map here. I think this could be 3 maps. I think it could be very exciting. NRG has a chance at the upset, but I'll say Team Liquid has the quality. I think they win 2-1. So all in all, yeah, on paper you should pick Na'Vi to win. I think there's a very good chance for FaZe Clan to win. I can't yet bet on Team Liquid because they've never shown me they can do it. NRG's a nice little dark horse team, and you have actually some okay upset potential on individual maps in the group stage.
This video was kindly supported by Dean Tanglis, Gardner Wilson, Andreas Snazore Westerlund, Alex Adams, Eddie Wingfors, Daniel Yordanov, Robert Baxter, Travis Greb, Kyla Harris, James Harding, Caesar, and special thanks go out to Matt Shakowski and Jerky's Minion in particular. Want teasers for my upcoming content? How about asking me a question for my monthly AMA? Do you want to take part in a discussion about esports with me? How about suggesting a topic or a guest for my content? Put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today.